How Humanity's War Proved. There, the galaxy's ultimate apex predator, the stars looked different from the observation deck of the Hegemony diplomatic vessel. Captain Jun Kim stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching Earth grow, smaller as they departed the solar system. After 30 years in the Korean Space Force, he'd never imagined being humanity's first official representative to a galactic civilization. "Your world appears quite violent," remarked Ambassador Telk, a tall, willowy being with iridescent skin that shifted colors with his moods. Currently, it pulsed with cautious yellow-green. "We call it beautiful," June replied simply. "Life competes. It's the foundation of our evolution." Telk's skin rippled with something like discomfort. "The hegemony achieved peace millennia ago. The 7 founding species evolved beyond competition." June nodded politely, thinking of the briefing files he'd studied. The hegemony, 7 advanced species that had formed an alliance spanning half the galaxy. Their technology was centuries beyond Earth's, their civilizations ancient and stable. They had invited humanity to join after detecting Earth's first interstellar transmissions. The diplomatic vessel entered fold space, the stars blurring as they traveled faster than light toward the hegemony core worlds. June used the 3-week journey to study. He noticed how the hegemony crew watched humans with a mixture of curiosity and unease. The way they flinched when humans moved too quickly, their surprise at human endurance during simple physical tests. "You slept only 5 hours," his assigned guide, Nira, noted one morning. Her species resembled something between a deer and a mantis with delicate limbs and large compound eyes. "Is that sufficient?" "Humans can function on less if needed," June explained. "During military operations, I've gone days with only short naps." Nira's antennae twitched. "How concerning." When they reached Valos Prime, the hegemony capital world, the true scale of their civilization became apparent. Orbital habitats formed glittering rings around a world of towering crystal spires and floating gardens. Ships of countless designs moved in perfect coordinated patterns. The Hegemony Council received the human delegation in a vast chamber with 7 massive thrones, one for each founding species. Smaller seats accommodated representatives from dozens of client races. June couldn't help noticing that humans were given seats near the back. "We welcome Earth to the greater galactic community," announced first speaker Mrek, an amphibious being with flowing gill fronds. "Your species has shown remarkable advancement in a short evolutionary time span." "We're honored to join you," June replied, performing the traditional bow of respect his team had practiced. "Humanity offers friendship and hopes to learn from your wisdom." The formal ceremonies lasted 3 days. June met representatives from over 30 species, each more alien than the last. He noticed how they studied humans, the way scientists might observe an interesting but potentially dangerous specimen. On the 4th day, June was invited to a private meeting with the Security Council. The room was smaller, the lighting dimmer. The mood decidedly less welcoming. "We've studied your species extensively," said Counselor Drav, a crystalline being whose voice resonated from vibrating facets. "Your planet's history troubles us." June kept his expression neutral. "History often looks bloody in hindsight." "Not just the conflicts," interjected Nira, who apparently held a higher position than she'd let on. "Your species' fundamental nature. You are apex predators." "Former predators," June corrected gently. "We've built civilizations based on cooperation. Yet your entertainment glorifies competition. Your children play games simulating hunting and warfare. Your bodies still carry adaptations for pursuit predation." Drav's crystal structure flickered with blue light. "Most concerning is your psychological profile. The pattern recognition abilities that once helped you track prey now turn to solving complex problems. The pack hunting instincts that brought down larger animals now manifest as military strategy." June felt a chill. The meeting wasn't just informational, it was an assessment. "We've achieved peace," he said carefully. "We want to join your community as equals." "And you shall," Mrek assured him, Gilfrons waving. "But understand that certain protocols must be established. Your military vessels will be limited in number and scope. Technology transfers will be carefully monitored. Earth representatives will have observer status for the first 50 years. Containment protocols, June, realized. They were afraid of humanity. That night, alone in his quarters, June reviewed the day's events. The hegemony was offering membership, but on terms that would keep humanity carefully controlled. Their fear was almost palpable. What troubled him most was wondering if they were right to be afraid. He accessed his secure terminal, composing a message to Earth's Security Council. Integration proceeding as expected, he wrote. The hegemony views us with caution bordering on fear. Their peace has made them forget what it means to struggle. They've evolved away from the very traits that might one day be needed for survival. June looked out at the alien stars, so different from the constellations he'd grown up with in Busan. Humanity had come so far, but they'd never lost the instincts that helped them survive on a world filled with dangers. Perhaps that wasn't a weakness. Perhaps it was exactly what would make them valuable, or dangerous to the wider galaxy. What neither June nor the hegemony could know was how soon those predatory instincts would be needed. Beyond the galactic rim, something was stirring. Something that would test the peaceful hegemony in ways they had never imagined. And humanity's warlike past would prove to be not a liability, but the galaxy's salvation. 5 years had passed since Earth joined the galactic hegemony. 5 years of carefully controlled integration, limited technology sharing, and thinly veiled supervision. Humans had been dispersed across the galaxy in small numbers. Advisors, observers, and cultural attachés. The hegemony called it fostering understanding. Captain June Kim called it what it was, keeping tabs on the dangerous newcomers. Commander Hana Park stood at her station on Hegemony Defense Station Epsilon, monitoring the quiet sector of space near the Cygnus Arm. At 34, she was one of the few humans granted a position of moderate responsibility in the Hegemony Defense Force. Most days it felt like a symbolic gesture. Another riveting shift of watching absolutely nothing happen, muttered Technician Lee beside her, adjusting the long-range scanners. 5 years of peace and cooperation, and they still have us stuck monitoring the middle of nowhere. Hana was about to respond when the alert system blared to life. The holographic display flickered, showing dozens, no hundreds, of unknown vessels entering the sector. What the hell? Lee leaned forward, fingers dancing across the controls. Those aren't registered with any hegemony species. The commie system crackled. Unidentified vessels, this is Hegemony Defense Station Epsilon. Identify yourselves and state your purpose. No response came. Instead, the unknown fleet accelerated. Alert the command center, Hana ordered, already punching in emergency codes. And get me everything we have on those ship designs. The next 6 hours became chaos. Reports flooded in from across the sector, colonies under attack, outposts going dark, defense fleets being overwhelmed. Whatever these invaders were, they moved with devastating precision and overwhelming firepower. Admiral Threx, the station's Volrati commander, called an emergency briefing. His normally blue-tinted scales had paled to a sickly white. They call themselves the Ixari, he announced to the assembled officers. A species unknown to our records, apparently from beyond the galactic rim. They've hit 16 hegemony worlds, simultaneously. The hologram displayed the devastation, burning cities, shattered defense installations, and strange, insect-like ships swarming through broken planetary defenses. What are their demands? Asked a Peloran officer, her feathered crest flattened in distress. They've made none, Threx replied grimly. They simply attack, strip worlds of resources, and move on. Their tactics are perfect, methodical, like a hive mind functioning with singular purpose. Hana studied the battle footage carefully. Something about the Ixari strategy seemed oddly familiar. Sir, she said, rising from her seat. Their attack patterns follow standard hegemony defense protocols. Perfectly. The room fell silent. Threx's inner eyelids flickered rapidly, the Volrathi equivalent of a concerned frown. Explain, Commander Park. Look at the Tiberius colony attack, she said, pulling up the footage. The Ixari countered every defensive maneuver exactly as if they knew what was coming. Because they did. They're counting on hegemony forces following established protocols. The same protocols that haven't changed in, 300 years? Threx's scales rippled with discomfort. The hegemony battle doctrine has been optimized for efficiency. For predictability, Hana interrupted, earning shocked looks from the non-human officers. Challenging superiors wasn't done in hegemony culture. The Ixari somehow got hold of your playbook and they're running circles around you because they know exactly what you're going to do before you do it. 2 days later, Hana found herself summoned to Central Command. The situation had deteriorated rapidly. 7 major colony worlds had fallen. The hegemony defense fleet, undefeated for millennia, was in retreat across multiple sectors. Desperate Council had assembled a special task force to analyze the Ixari threat. Hana was shocked to discover several other humans had been called in as well. Military strategists and tactical officers who had been scattered across the galaxy, suddenly valuable for their unique perspectives. The hegemony hasn't faced a true enemy in over 2,000 years, explained Director Kima, an ancient Peleran whose once bright feathers had dulled with age. Our tactics evolved toward efficiency and minimal loss of life. We don't understand how to fight an enemy that doesn't follow the rules. Hana spent weeks analyzing Ixari battle footage with the other human specialists. What they discovered was both fascinating and terrifying. The Ixari were indeed a hive mind species, millions of individual drones controlled by central queen ships. Their technology was beyond even the hegemony's understanding. They communicated instantly across vast distances. Their coordination was perfect. But they had weaknesses. They have no concept of deception, Hana explained to the Emergency Council. They fight like a perfect machine, but they don't understand misdirection. They can't comprehend why someone would sacrifice a stronger piece to save a weaker one. And most importantly, they can't adapt to the unexpected. How could you possibly know this? Demanded Counselor Vrax, his crystalline form pulsing with skeptical red light. Because humanity fought like them once, she replied. Early AI war, simulations followed perfect logical patterns. But they always lost to human commanders who did the irrational, the unexpected. The Ixari are like biological computers, devastating when following their programming, but vulnerable to what they can't predict. The chamber fell silent. Hana could see the reluctance in their alien faces. What she was proposing went against millennia of hegemony military doctrine. It required throwing away the carefully optimized battle plans and embracing chaos. Controlled chaos, but chaos nonetheless. You're suggesting we fight like humans, said Admiral Threx, speaking the words as if they left a sour taste. I'm suggesting we fight to win, Hana replied. The Ixari have never encountered a species that evolved as predators. They've never faced an enemy that understands deception as an instinct. On Earth, even our children play games of misdirection and bluffing. It's in our blood. 3 days later, Hana watched from the bridge of the hegemony cruiser. Unwavering. Doctrine as they prepared the first counter-offensive using human tactics. Her plan was simple but alien to hegemony thinking. Appear weak where they were strong, appear strong where they were weak, and hit the enemy where they least expected. As the fleet moved into position, Admiral Threx approached her station. If this fails, Commander Park, it will be the end of humanity's standing in the hegemony, he said quietly. Many already blame your species for somehow attracting this threat. Hana nodded. And if it works? Threx's scales shifted to a troubled purple. Then we may have to reconsider everything we thought we knew about your kind, and whether your predatory instincts are a danger, or our salvation. The alert sounded. The Ixari fleet had arrived right on schedule, moving in their perfect, predictable formation. Predators who had never needed to fear becoming prey. Until now. The Emergency Council chamber buzzed with tension. 3 months into the Ixari invasion, and the hegemony was facing something it hadn't encountered in thousands of years. The real possibility of defeat. Holographic displays showed dozens of fallen worlds, millions of refugees, and battle, maps covered in red retreat markers. In the center of it all stood General Tay Park, recently arrived from Earth with a delegation of human military strategists. At 53, Tay's weathered face showed the scars of humanity's last great conflict before joining the stars. The room fell silent as he stepped forward. Your civilization has enjoyed peace for so long that you've forgotten a fundamental truth, Tay said, his voice carrying across the chamber without technological amplification. Peace isn't the natural state of the universe, competition is. Several council members shifted uncomfortably. The Pelleran representative ruffled her feathers in obvious distaste. We haven't brought you here for philosophical debates, General. First speaker, Mrek said, Gilfrons waving with agitation. Commander Hannah Park's tactics at the Battle of Epsilon showed promise. We need solutions, not lectures. Tay nodded, acknowledging the rebuke. The solution is simple, though not easy. We don't just need to fight differently. We need to think differently. He gestured to the battle displays. The Ixari defeat you because they understand your playbook better than you do. They anticipate your every move because those moves haven't changed in centuries. He brought up footage from Hannah's partially successful counterattack at Epsilon. Commander Park showed what happens when you introduce unpredictability. Now imagine an entire war strategy built on that principle. The footage shifted to show Earth military archives, ancient battles from human history, modern warfare simulations, even children playing capture the flag. The council watched with a mixture of fascination and horror as Tay explained concepts alien to their peaceful mindset, feints and ambushes, psychological warfare, asymmetric tactics. This is barbaric, whispered Councillor Drav, his crystalline structure dimming with distaste. This is survival, Tay corrected. And it's why Earth evolved the way it did. We come from a world where everything was trying to kill us. Predators, weather, disease, even each other. We didn't just adapt to our environment, we forced our environment to adapt to us. The debate raged for days. Many hegemony leaders resisted the idea of adopting human military doctrine. But as more colonies fell and the Ixari pressed deeper into hegemony space, desperation overcame prejudice. 2 weeks later, Tay stood on the bridge of the hegemony flagship, Eternal Harmony, now redesignated as Fleet Command for what humans had informally dubbed Strike Force Apex. Around him, human advisors worked alongside increasingly receptive hegemony officers. They still don't understand what we're doing, muttered Colonel Jun, watching a Volrathi tactical officer struggle with the concept of a feint. They keep trying to optimize for efficiency when we need controlled chaos. They'll learn, Tay replied, because the alternative is extinction. The first true test of human tactics came at the Rigel Expanse. Instead of meeting the Ixari in open battle as hegemony doctrine dictated, Strike Force Apex fragmented into dozens of smaller battle groups, striking from multiple vectors, withdrawing, before the Ixari could coordinate their response, then hitting again from unexpected directions. From his command chair, Tay watched the confusion spread through the enemy fleet. The Ixari, for the first time, hesitated. They're adapting, warned the sensor officer. Shifting to defensive formations. Good, Tay smiled grimly. Adaptation requires diverting resources. Phase 2. As the Ixari concentrated on defense, a hidden group of hegemony's fastest ships tore through their supply lines, targeting the vulnerable queen ships that directed the hive mind. The destruction of just 3 queen vessels sent thousands of drone ships into disarray. For the first time in the war, the hegemony had won a decisive victory. The success at Rigel changed everything. Reluctance gave way to desperate embrace of human military thinking. More human officers were elevated to command positions. Strike Force Apex expanded into multiple battle groups, each incorporating the principles that made humanity such effective predators: adaptation, deception, and the willingness to accept calculated losses for strategic advantage. Not everyone embraced the change. Tay found himself continually explaining concepts that humans took for granted. But why would you retreat when you have superior numbers? asked Admiral Zelk during a strategy session, his tentacles writhing in confusion. Because we want them to think they're winning, Tay explained patiently. So they'll pursue us into this gravity well where we have hidden forces waiting. Deception. Zelk said the word like it was foreign to his mouth. It seemed dishonorable. Honor is a luxury of the living, Jun replied bluntly. The dead have no use for it. As the weeks passed, the hegemony witnesses something they had never expected. Humans in their natural element. Where the peace-loving species of the Alliance had evolved away from aggression, humans revealed themselves as creatures forged in the crucible of competition. The very traits that had made the hegemony fear humanity now made them essential. During the Battle of Procyon, hegemony officers watched in awe as human commanders functioned on minimal sleep for days, making complex decisions under extreme stress. They marveled at humanity's psychological resilience when plans failed, quickly adapting rather than breaking. Most disturbing, and effective, was humanity's capacity for controlled violence, the ability to inflict calculated destruction, while remaining disciplined. How do you do it? Asked xenobiologist Grell, studying biometric data from human officers after a particularly brutal engagement. Your cortisol levels should have rendered you non-functional hours ago. Commander Yoon, who had just directed a 17-hour battle, shrugged. My great-grandmother survived 3 years in a war zone with nothing but foraged food and her wits. This? She gestured to the comfortable command center. This is luxury. 4 months into the human-led counteroffensive, the tide began to turn. The Ixari, confronted with an enemy they couldn't predict, began making critical errors. Their perfect formations became hesitant. Their advances slowed, then stopped altogether. At a critical strategic briefing, Tay unveiled the next phase of his plan to the now receptive council. The Ixari are like any predator that's never faced competition, he explained. They don't know how to be prey. Now that we've shown them vulnerability, we press the advantage. First speaker, Mrek, once so dismissive of human tactics, leaned forward. What do you propose, General? We take the fight to them, Tay said, pulling up a map of Ixari-controlled space. Not as the hegemony would, with overwhelming force in direct confrontation, but as humans would, striking where they're weak, vanishing before they can respond, and always doing what they least expect. As the council unanimously approved his plan, Tay felt the weight of the moment. Humanity had joined the galaxy as suspects, potential threats to be contained. Now they were its best hope for survival. Humans don't just adapt to circumstances, observed xenobiologist Grell later that evening, reviewing footage of the day's battles. They force circumstances to adapt to them. I find that both terrifying and necessary. Tay nodded, watching. The stars through the observation deck. That's what makes us dangerous, and that's what might just save us all. The Hegemony Council chamber looked nothing like it had 6 months ago. Gone were the ornate decorations and ceremonial seating arrangements. In their place stood a war room, holographic battle maps, tactical displays, and communication arrays connecting the leadership to the front lines. At the center stood Admiral Sujin Lee, recently granted unprecedented authority over the combined Hegemony Defense Forces. Humanity evolved on a death world, Sujin explained to the assembled multi-species officers. Her voice was calm but carried an intensity that commanded attention. Earth's history is written in survival. Everything from our biology to our psychology was shaped by the constant need to adapt or die. We will now teach you how to survive. The words would have been unthinkable just months ago, a human instructing the ancient species of the hegemony. But the Ixari invasion had changed everything. Conventional tactics had failed. Only human strategies had shown any success against the hive-minded invaders. Sujin moved through the holographic display, highlighting key strategic positions. The Ixari expect you to protect your population centers at all costs. It's what you've always done. It's what every civilized species does, so we're going to evacuate them instead. Murmurs of shock rippled through the gathering. A Pellerin officer's feather crest stood fully erect in alarm. "Abandon our core worlds," she chittered. "Where would our people go?" "To previously prepared sanctuary worlds," Sujin replied, "while our forces draw the Ixari into carefully planned killing grounds." Over the next several weeks, the largest relocation in galactic history began. Billions of citizens from dozens of species moved along secretly established corridors, while the hegemony fleet, now reorganized under human tactical principles, created diversions and deceptions to mask the movement. On the front lines, human commanders implemented strategies alien to the hegemony's peaceful sensibilities: strategic deception, calculated sacrifice, and exploitation of the psychological dimensions of warfare. Most disturbing to their allies was humans' ability to think like the enemy, to predict responses based on evolutionary psychology, and exploit them. "You fight as if you were Ixari yourself," remarked Fleet Commander Threx as they reviewed the successful defense of the Archon system. "Know your enemy," replied Captain Jin Kang, who had led the operation. "Humans spent thousands of years fighting each other before we achieved unity. We understand how predators think because we are predators." The comment silenced the room. It was a truth the hegemony had recognized upon first contact: humanity's predatory nature. But now that very nature had become their salvation. Major Jin Kang's name became legendary after the Battle of Sirius Deep. When Ixari forces ambushed their fleet, crippling the command ship, Jin led a boarding party across open space to capture an enemy vessel. The mission succeeded despite radiation levels that would kill most hegemony species and physical stress that should have been incapacitating. "How did you continue functioning with 3 broken ribs and radiation poisoning?" asked the hegemony medical officer during Jin's treatment. Jin, barely conscious but still alert, managed a pained smile. "Tuesday on Earth wasn't much better." The joke was lost on the alien doctor, but the message wasn't. Humans possessed physical and psychological resilience that the peaceful species of the hegemony had evolved away from over millennia of comfortable existence. As human tactics proved increasingly effective, the hegemony granted greater authority to Earth's military leaders. Admiral Sujin reorganized the entire defense strategy, introducing concepts that had once been unthinkable: misleading the enemy with false intelligence, sacrificing valuable assets to gain strategic advantage, and using psychological warfare to disrupt the Ixari hive mind. "You must understand," Sujin explained to the council during a critical strategy session, "the Ixari think like a perfect machine: logical, efficient, predictable. Humans think like the messy, emotional, sometimes irrational creatures we are, and that's our advantage. They can't predict what they can't understand." The Ixari, facing an enemy they couldn't anticipate, began making critical errors. Their once perfect coordination showed signs of confusion. Their advance, which had seemed unstoppable, faltered and then stalled completely. The turning point came 8 months into the human-led counteroffensive. Intelligence identified a pattern in Ixari communications, brief vulnerabilities in their hive mind network when coordinating large-scale movements. "We can exploit this," Major Jin explained to the Joint Command, still bearing the scars from Sirius Deep. "A strike team could penetrate their command structure during the synchronization window and implant our disruptive algorithms directly into their network." The plan was audacious to the point of insanity by hegemony standards. It required a small team to infiltrate an Ixari command vessel, something never before accomplished, navigate its alien internal structure, and survive long enough to complete the mission. "It's suicide," stated Admiral Threx flatly. "It's necessary," Jin countered, "and I'll lead it myself." The mission launched 3 days later, a specially modified stealth vessel carrying Jin and a team of volunteers, both human and the few hegemony species willing to attempt such a high-risk operation. They slipped through the Ixari defensive, screened during a larger diversionary attack, attaching their ship to the massive command vessel like a parasite. For 26 hours, nothing but automated status signals emerged from the team. The hegemony command center maintained desperate hope, while preparing contingency plans for failure. Then, just as they were about to implement the backup strategy, the Ixari fleet surrounding the command ship suddenly broke formation. Ships fired on each other. Others drifted aimlessly. The hive mind had been compromised. When Jin's team finally returned, fewer in number than when they'd left, they brought with them priceless intelligence and irrefutable proof that the invincible Ixari could be beaten. Jin's debriefing revealed the true nature of their enemy. Not just a hive mind, but a species that had engineered itself for perfect efficiency, removing all traces of individuality, creativity, and adaptability in the process. They chose perfect unity over messy evolution, Jin explained, still recovering from wounds that would have killed most beings. They engineered out the very traits that make adaptation possible. They can't understand deception because they have no concept of individual thought. They can't comprehend sacrifice because they value perfect efficiency above all. As the war entered its second year, the galaxy witnessed something remarkable. The species that the hegemony had once feared as too aggressive, too unpredictable, had become their greatest defenders. Human military doctrine, once dismissed as primitive and barbaric, proved to be exactly what was needed against an enemy that had never faced true competition. Perhaps, mused first speaker Marek to Admiral Sujin after the victory celebration, the galaxy needed predators after all. We had forgotten what it means to fight for survival. Sujin nodded, looking out at the stars. Earth taught us one thing above all others. The universe doesn't care about peace or war, civilization or barbarism. It cares about adaptation. And humans? She smiled grimly. We've been adapting since we climbed down from the trees. The war had raged for 18 months. The hegemony, once on the brink of collapse, had clawed its way back to something resembling parity with the Ixari invaders. Dozens of worlds had been reclaimed. The refugee crisis had stabilized. For the first time since the invasion began, there was hope. But Fleet Commander Do-Yeon Park knew better than to confuse hope with victory. She stood on the bridge of the decisive strike, a new class of warship designed with human battle concepts in mind. Gone were the elegant ceremonial aesthetics of traditional hegemony vessels. This was a predator's craft, sleek, dangerous, and purposeful. Status report, Do-Yeon ordered, scanning the tactical display showing their position near the Galactic core. Around them floated the largest combined fleet ever assembled in the hegemony's history, over 3,000 ships from 24 species, all following a battle plan conceived by human strategists. All battle groups report ready, Commander, replied her executive officer, Rin. The Ixari main fleet continues to mass at coordinates designated Phase 1. They appear to be taking the bait. Do-Yeon nodded, satisfaction warming her chest. The plan was working. After months of careful preparation, strategic retreats, and deliberate display of vulnerabilities, they had convinced the Ixari that the hegemony was preparing a last, desperate defense of the core systems. In reality, it was the most elaborate trap ever conceived. Signal the fleet, she ordered. Begin Phase 2. Across light years of space, ships that had been hiding in gas clouds, asteroid fields, and even the corona of nearby stars powered up their systems. Not combat vessels, but specially modified cargo haulers and science vessels. Each carried a piece of the puzzle that would turn the tide of war. The Ixari think they're hunting us, Do-Yeon had explained to the Combined Species Command 3 weeks earlier. We're going to remind them what it feels like to be prey. The plan drew on humanity's oldest hunting traditions: appear vulnerable, bait your enemy, and strike from directions they never expected. It required perfect timing, absolute discipline, and the willingness to take calculated risks that would have been unthinkable to the hegemony before humans joined their ranks. Now, watching the plan unfold, Do-Yeon felt the weight of history. If they succeeded, the galaxy would never be the same. If they failed, there might not be a galaxy worth saving. The Ixari main fleet surged forward, exactly as predicted. Their hive mind had analyzed the apparent weakness in the hegemony's position and committed to a final, overwhelming assault. Thousands of ships moved in perfect, terrifying formation. A predator going for the kill. They're passing the point of no return, reported the tactical officer. All ships are committed. Do-Yon nodded grimly. Spring the trap. The modified cargo vessels activated their payloads, not weapons in the conventional sense, but thousands of quantum resonators tuned specifically to the frequency of Ixari ship-to-ship communications. The devices had been developed based on intelligence gathered during Major Jin's mission months earlier, designed to create cascading disruptions. In the hive mind's coordination, the effect was immediate and devastating. The perfect formation of Ixari vessels faltered. Ships veered off course, some colliding with each other. Others fired weapons at random, hitting their own forces. Phase 3. Do-Yon ordered, her voice calm despite the surge of adrenaline. The main hegemony fleet moved into action, but not in the predictable doctrine-based patterns the Ixari had come to expect. Instead, they attacked in seemingly chaotic, unpredictable waves, small, fast-moving squadrons striking from multiple vectors, then withdrawing before the Ixari could coordinate a response. On the bridge of the decisive strike, Do-Yon felt a surge of fierce pride watching the battle unfold. The species of the hegemony had learned well. Where once they fought like machines, predictable doctrine-bound, now they fought like humans, like predators. The Pellerin Third Wing is taking heavy losses, reported the communications officer. As expected, Do-Yon replied. Signal the Volrathi squadrons to move in and exploit the gap. This was the hardest lesson the hegemony had to learn, that sometimes survival required sacrifice, that victory sometimes meant accepting losses. That war was not an equation to be optimized, but a deadly dance of adaptation and counter-adaptation. The battle raged for hours. Human commanders pushed their ships beyond design tolerances, continuing to fight despite damage that would have triggered automatic retreats under hegemony protocols. Alien crews, inspired by their example, did the same. Ixari command vessel detected, announced the sensor officer suddenly. They've brought their central hive ship into the battle. This was unexpected. The Ixari had never risked their primary command node before. Do-Yon studied the tactical display, mind racing. This wasn't part of the plan, but it presented an opportunity they couldn't ignore. All ships, this is Fleet Commander Park, she broadcast. Primary target identified, implement Protocol Apex. I repeat, implement Protocol Apex. Protocol Apex wasn't in the official battle plan. It was a contingency Do-Yon had prepared, but kept secret from all but her most trusted officers. A last resort strategy requiring almost suicidal bravery from its participants. Across the fleet, human captains acknowledged the order. Their ships broke formation, accelerating at maximum thrust toward the massive Ixari command vessel. Behind them, confused but loyal, followed the bravest of their hegemony allies. What are they doing? Demanded the Pellerin liaison officer on the bridge. They're sacrificing our best ships. They're ending the war, Do-Yon replied simply. The human-led ships punched through the disorganized Ixari defenses, taking terrible losses, but creating a corridor straight to the command vessel. Those that made it through launched specially designed boarding pods, each containing a small team of human special forces carrying neural disruptors tuned to the exact frequency of the Ixari hive mind. For 20 agonizing minutes, the battle hung in perfect balance. Then, like puppets with cut strings, Ixari ships throughout the battlefield suddenly went dark. Some drifted aimlessly. Others initiated emergency protocols and began retreating toward the galactic rim. The hive mind had been severed. 3 days later, Do-Yon stood in the Hegemony Council chamber, now restored to some of its former glory. The mood was solemn despite their victory. The cost had been enormous. Billions dead, worlds devastated, entire species brought to the brink of extinction. But they had survived. The last Ixari vessels have left our galaxy, she reported. Long-range scans show them returning to whatever dark space they came from. First Speaker Mrek approached slowly, his once vibrant gill fronds now pale with age and stress. Commander Park, the Council has reached a unanimous decision. Humanity will no longer be classified as a potentially destabilizing element. Your species has proven itself not just as allies, but as the defenders of our civilization. Duyan nodded, accepting the honor with the gravity it deserved. We did what we evolved to do, Speaker Mrek. Humans have always been at our best when challenged to adapt or die. Later, walking through the rebuilt gardens of the capital world, Doyan was approached by Counselor Mrek in a less formal capacity. We feared your predatory nature when we first encountered your kind, the Vosarian admitted. We saw your wars, your competitiveness, your capacity for violence as flaws to be contained. And now? Doyan asked. Mrek's gill fronds shifted in. What humans had learned was a gesture of deep respect. Now we understand. The galaxy needed predators after all. It needed a species that remembered what it meant to fight for survival. Duyan looked up at the stars, the same stars that had witnessed humanity's long, difficult evolution from tree-dwelling primates to spacefaring apex predators. The stars that had seen them overcome countless challenges, adapt to impossible situations, and emerge stronger. That's the irony, she said softly. Your species sought to transcend your evolutionary heritage. You engineered peace and prosperity so complete that you forgot the very instincts that helped you survive in the first place. And humanity? We never forgot where we came from, Doyan replied. Earth shaped us into what we are. Adaptable, resilient, and dangerous when threatened. Those aren't flaws. They're the qualities that just saved the galaxy. As the reconstructed capital gleamed in the sunset, the hegemony entered a new era, one where the species they had once feared as too aggressive, too unpredictable, now stood as their greatest protectors. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson. In the great game of cosmic survival, the true apex predator wasn't the strongest or the most technologically advanced. It was the most adaptable. And humanity, forged in Earth's evolutionary crucible, had proven that adaptability was their defining trait.